Hey everyone, welcome to the Ministry of Automation podcast series. We are live streaming it here on LinkedIn as well as on YouTube. So you can listen it either on LinkedIn or on YouTube. And I'm going to post the recording on Facebook as well as on some other platforms. And listen for next 30 minutes. I'm going to share a very interesting topic today, which is around automation. If you are working in automation or you are planning to work in automation industry, or you are someone who has been in an industry for a long time, you'll probably relate a lot of things I'm going to talk today. So you welcome all of you in this podcast series. Today's topic is very interesting topic. When I started my journey in this industry, I haven't heard about anything like maturity model. you know uh, Honestly, for first 4 or 5 years, I was not even aware that there are different levels of maturity in automation. What I simply knew is, hey, learn Selenium and you're good. Learn Java and you're good. So I'm going to talk about all those uh, things which generally people also encounter in their journey when they are learning automation or when they are transiting from manual testing job to automation. So we'll cover a bunch of things today. So if you are interested to take down a notes, I would highly recommend you to grab a piece of paper and a pencil, because whatever I'm going to talk is out of experience, and you may not find such content out there in YouTube, Udemy, not even some blog post. This is purely designed by my own, out of working experience of 13 years with the different companies, and you will definitely uh, get some advantage out of this. So I think we have good amount of audience. So I can see some people on YouTube as well. So let's get started. So let me introduce myself. First of all, welcome all of you. My name is Saurabh Thawali, and I'm in this industry for last 13 years. I have worked with different type of companies throughout this journey. Service companies, product companies, small companies, big scale companies. To name a few, I have started my journey with Cognizant, and then I worked with a different service company like Zensar. I worked with Oracle as a product company, enterprise company there. I worked with Workday, Cisco, and currently I'm working at Apple. So there are different type of companies I have enjoyed working with, and each company I was exposed with a different type of automation, different level of automation maturity, different infrastructure, different languages, different frameworks, and lot of things around people, processes, and tools. So combining the experience of everything together, I have realized that uh, it's not one size fits all kind of a thing in automation. And whenever you're learning automation, implementing automation, or trying to take automation to a next level, it's very much needed that you are aware where we stand as of date. What type of maturity model or what type of maturity level my current project is, and where can I take it to a next level, but what that next level is all about. What all things are needed. So we're going to talk about all that things. A quick disclaimer about whatever I'm discussing in this podcast. All the opinion expressed here are solely my own content, and it's nothing a reflection or a belief from any of my previous or past or future companies. This is purely for education and entertainment purposes. So let's come back on a topic. Once again, I would like to request everyone, if you are interested, grab a paper and pen and note down whenever I insist. So welcome once again to this podcast of automation maturity model. Just to remind you, this is the fourth episode in our series. If you are interested to go back and hear what three topics were initially shared, please go and listen to them. They are very much interesting. So now, today I'm talking about automation maturity model. Why I'm talking about it? I have realized in a lot of different automation forums and in a lot of different automation projects, people are well aware what they are supposed to do in their project in terms of automation, but sometimes I feel there is a lack of clarity and understanding of what are they doing and what is a roadmap or what is the next level looks like. How they can leverage the existing people which are working in automation processes and technologies, and how they can get to a next level. Because we all start our first mile of test automation, but we need to think what that 100 next mile looks like. It's a spectrum of different things within that next 100 miles in automation. So what are those different things? They all are around processes, tools, people, perception. uh, just to give few examples, we're going to talk about what are the key performance areas on which you can evaluate your current automation stack or your current automation project. What are the different stakeholder commitments, the degree of involvement of them? Do you create test strategies for automation? What kind of communication you follow? Do you have reporting mechanism? Do you have some kind of uh, publishing mechanism? How what different type of metrics do you use? Do you have automated defect management process? Do you use design patterns or not? uh, how robust is your test infrastructure? What kind of test tools do you use? So all these different parameters, there is a theoretical way to calculate, which is very 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 complicated, but there is a simple way. If you just listen to the podcast, which I'm going to talk about all four different levels today, and also a fifth level, uh, apart from this theoretical calculation about automation maturity model, I'm going to share a few quick examples. And if you are interested to know, hey, where do I stand, or where my previous company was in my previous project, you just need to relate what I'm talking. And if your answer is yes to majority of those questions, then you are in a condition to understand that your maturity model is at that level. Okay, so let's start. So what's a level one looks like? So I call it as a simple level or initial level. You may also say emerging level, a very basic minimum level. So what that first level of automation looks like? Generally it's a first mile of test automation, and the test exists, but framework does not exist. And most of the time this kind of a level is being started by or initiated by a few QA people or any one QA person in a project who is interested in automation, who want to learn and implement on automation. And this is where the level one starts. uh, he suddenly feels that, hey, there are a lot of repetitive things which we are doing could be automated, and that person goes up extra mile and try to automate things and showcase to his manager or stakeholders or a team. So that's what the level one looks like. Automation is simply due to the excitement, about a topic, and initial force to showcase management about what they are capable of. So that's the first level looks like. It's simple, automating a simple task, simple UI logins, simple UI verifications, user flows, nothing complicated, or handshakes or APIs, or uh, nothing between the platforms or as such. A very basic straightforward scripts. There is no design pattern in it. There is no test automation planning or estimation or deliverables or tracking or reporting. No brainstorming sessions, and nothing as such. So that's a level one. At this level, management may not be even interested to invest a lot of resource, time and tools, because it is just getting started. So that's the first level of automation looks like. uh, Very very straightforward. So goal at this stage is generally to showcase that we are capable of doing automation, rather than what are the value add we brought on table. So that's how it starts. Let's not judge at this stage. We all have started at this stage, and honestly, that's how the maturity goes from one level to next level. If you guys have worked in an agile methodology, you would have heard about the Tuckman's model, right? Where different teams who are working in a sprint goes through different phases, like forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning, right? So different phases the team traverse. Some teams are always in norming phase, they never goes to a performing stage. uh, Similar model can also be related with automation. In automation maturity, there are certain levels. Some teams or some projects remain at that level for a long time, you know but that doesn't mean that we can't help them to take into a next level. So let's come back again on a level one. So like I said, on a level one, a very simple straightforward scripts mostly starts with the UI scripts. No design pattern, no framework, hardly there is a reusable script. from the technical perspective, language can be anything, whatever that QA person or the one person who initiates automation in a project, whatever language he's comfortable into, they'll start automation with that. Not necessarily what the project needs or what compatibility the project will help for a long run. And also, mode of execution is predominantly local, like on our own laptops. You may not find a containerized local execution or some kind of a private or public cloud, nothing like that. It's a purely local machine execution. And like I said, the level one doesn't have framework as such. May have a basic frameworks if they have learned something from YouTube or Udemy or something like that, they will try to implement it. But it's a very very basic, sometimes not even a framework. uh, Mostly it starts with a UI test, like I said. Setup is also complete machine dependent. You may not see a lift and shift kind of a automation setup in this level. uh, and also no documentation or education material to onboard new folks. So if you are relating with this kind of information, uh, more than 70% you can say that my project or I am in this level. If not, let's go and try to understand what the next level looks like. So the next level is a developing level, level 2. I can also call it as a repeatable or a QA centric level. you know in this level we have a dedicated resource for working on test automation, and they no need to always do a trade-off in for automation with some other work, or they no need to always juggle between the different tasks of maybe manual or maybe something else. They purely are focused on automation. That is what I have realized in so far working with so many companies and different projects. So they have automation as their main deliverables, their main responsibility. And then in the level 2 you will find mostly UI frameworks. No Whenever the framework gets started, you will see some kind of a framework. I'll talk more about it in on next levels as well. But a mix of API and UI test. You may not find lot of uh, database test or handshake or integration or third party integrations, but a basic minimal of UI and API test you will definitely get there. uh, you may not find a process of nightly runs to check the health of your application. There may be bugs automatically logged, but most of the time I have seen in this level, the script fails, someone goes and try to see what's wrong, and then they log the bugs manually. So the failure of a scripts are treated manually. And intention at this stage is generally kind of a showcasing the automation work done, and then the kind of a value derived over the period of time by automating a particular feature or a product. uh, at this level I have seen not much of discussion around brainstorming or TED deck, or investing on test infrastructure, or talking about what is the retrospection around our automation project, and all those things doesn't happen at this level a lot. uh, Collecting data, sharing data between systems and handshakes are very limited at this level. So thinking about maintenance cost, is not at this level. People doesn't think much about it because there are bare minimum tests running at this stage. Creating test automation is easy, but keeping it healthy and ongoing needs a time, motivation, and an investment. That kind of understanding people start realizing at this stage, because they started automation, but when they feel that they are writing more and more automation, but it's very difficult to get it maintained, that's where they start investing on all this cost which I'm talking about, like ongoing maintenance, motivation, infrastructure, and kind of a processes, bringing new tools and practices and all those things. At this stage you can also say that some scripts are written in a library fashions, or kind of a reusable fashions. There are coding conventions is being established by the teams, how they want to name their script or name their methods, how the particular feature should be automated. There are some basic guidelines are in place. In a way, documentation is in place, right? uh, from technical side, people start using abstractions, inheritance in their script at this level. Again, from the language perspective, it could be any, like I said, whichever the team is comfortable with, or generally the framework whatever is initially been started, Python, Java, Scala, anything. Mode of execution at this stage, predominantly it will be local, but you will also see a mix of containerized execution. May not be completely remote like on AWS or on some other private hybrid clouds, but you will still see a mix of Dockers or local machine execution. Basic frameworks which can include UI and API as well. You may not find performance tests, security tests, or different type of complex test, but you will still see a good amount of automation which can make your stakeholder happy that automation is there in a project. Minimum documentation to onboard new people, and you may not see an in-depth analysis of automation trend, execution trend, what we can learn about it, and how and what feature is not stable enough, where we need a more investment. Do we need investment in resources? We need investment in infrastructure, we need investment in tools, or altogether education for a complete project. You may not see such things at this level. There are some more things which I'll talk down the line, which is around what are the capabilities of framework we see at this level, or on a more different levels, like common libraries, screenshots, logging mechanism, reporting mechanism, metrics collection, bug logging automatically, emails or Slack notification features. Do you have any design patterns in place? uh, do your execution is browser dependent, browserless? Do you have integration with some other third party device labs, or like browser stacks or source labs or any of such things? So let's keep on understanding the different levels. Now let's jump to third level. This is an important level, and honestly, from my own experience working with so many companies, I have seen most of the teams are at this level, who has automation in place for years together, and it's good. It's not bad, but I have seen a lot of teams remain at this stage for a long time. You know, uh, there are things which they don't implement, or they they don't realize the value add. If they can bring new processes, tools, and infrastructure in place, they can go to a next level, which I'll talk about in a while. So let's talk about this level 3. I call it as a collaboration level. It's an efficient level, honestly, and like I said, majority of the teams are generally at this level. At this level, it's not just QA who writes automation, or it's not just one person who owns a responsibility of test automation. It's a combined responsibility of an entire team working on a specific feature or product to be shipped. So it's a dev, QA, and some more stakeholders, maybe, together understanding the automation stack, and together working towards the quality goals. So that's this efficient level is all about. Script reviews are done in an efficient manner. Developers jump into code reviews. QA people try to uh, review the unit test written by the dev folks, because they are pretty much in the same repository, or maybe in the same pipeline running it. The test automation scope is well defined at this stage. The different stakeholders understand what kind of tests they want to automate, and they don't just run around the test coverage aspect, that hey, we need 80% coverage, we need 90% coverage. That kind of talk doesn't happen. They mostly talk happens around scoping part of it. For example, uh, lot of tests we no need to even automate. I have seen a lot of projects which try to automate and spend a lot of time to automate two-factor authentication, captcha, usability, UX testing, which may not be needed, or there are different ways to mitigate those kind of automation. But yes, at this level, the team has a clear understanding and a picture what they want to automate, what they don't want to automate. Most project at this stage uh, do not have that burden of showcasing that we are capable of automation, because it's pretty much well known to everyone that this team is capable of automation. What the burden is around what and how much uh, consistent tests are you writing, and how it's actually helping our developers to be proactive and not reactive. In the previous two levels, most of the automation strategies were reactive. You get a build, you test, if it fails, you log a bug. The feedback loop is delayed in that way. At this level, the reason I'm calling at this level is an efficient level is because the feedback loop is very quick. Even the developer ship a product to a QA team, or ideally give it to a QA for testing, he can run your automation suite, we call it as pre-commit tests, or something kind of pre-checks, on his code, and and understands where the bug is, and he fixes it. So the feedback loop is pretty quick, and that's the intention at this, and that's a maturity at this level. The team work towards that because they want to ship a quality products quickly, and do that iteratively, and the frequency of shipping should be fast enough. So test guardrails are implemented at this level. How can we catch that non-compliant bug or non-compliant test script? So a lot of proactive measures are being taken at this level, rather than finding the bugs later on in that complete life cycle. We try to catch the bugs as early as possible. The test automation is being written in that way. At this level, you will also find a defined design patterns is being used. If you guys are not aware about the design patterns, there are different design patterns with which you can design your scripts. Why we need a design pattern, someone might ask. It helps in scalability, reusability, maintenance, uh, cost over the period of time, flexibility. You can rely reliable if you have right design patterns. So you will see a good amount of design patterns is being used. Predominantly three different types or three major types of design patterns: structural pattern, creational pattern, and behavioral pattern. So based on your project needs, you will see a defined design pattern is being used at this level. Again, the language from technical side, it could be any, but generally seen, at this level of maturity, the automation would have multiple languages is being used, because their scope of automation is diverse. They may not just stick with Python, or they may not just stick with one JavaScript. They'll have to include multiple languages for multiple needs. If you're working on a data handling, you will have to write something in Python. In JavaScript, you will have to learn how to write a YAML, XML, you have parse JSON. So there are different type of technicality involved at this level. Mode of execution at this level are predominantly containerized. It could be on AWS or any private cloud, but you will see that people uses lot of cloud capabilities at this level, in terms of compute, in terms of storage, in terms of caching, in terms of reporting, analytics. Some part of it, it may not be fully optimized framework, but you will still see a lot of compute power, or I would say cloud services is being used at this level of automation maturity. The framework is growing. You will not see a stagnant framework at this level. You will see a good amount on a good mixture of different frameworks is being talking to each other at this level. They work independently, but they can share data with each other. You will have a lot of API tests at this level, minimum or to whatever is required, those many UI tests. You will see multiple browser execution capabilities, multiple device execution capabilities. You will see a good amount of documentation at this level for a new person to onboard, and so on. So this level is pretty much, like I said, majority of team I have seen who has years of automation in place, and they include this kind of capability and they work on it. Some more capabilities I have seen at this level is metric collection, reporting, trend analysis, health check scripts whenever the new build comes. And like I said, the main intention here is including all stakeholders work together towards quality and being a proactive, so that we can ship a quality products iteratively and fastly. So that's about a level 3. If you are someone who can relate with this level, like most 70% of the things I have discussed, then yeah, it's a good news. You are on a track of getting mature to a next level, which is level 4, which I call it as a self-managed or fusion. It's a good matured level in terms of automation, where you will see a good automation pyramid is being handled nicely in your test inventory. Here you will see hundreds, sometimes thousands of scripts in your pipeline running, which are starting with the unit test, API, handshake, integration, system, health check, complete end to end. And uh, they are all they are all predominantly running like for every check-ins and every builds, and almost every day in your pipeline. And developers are highly dependent on your automation to check the quality of their code, before even they give it to the QA or any other stakeholders. So their dependency on your automation is very high, and that's the reason I call it as self-managed. The reason, because you will see a lot of proactive measures being taken again at this level. You know, a lot of pre-commit checks the developers will implement. A lot of guardrails being implemented by the automation engineers. Lot of tools will be designed so that the people in your test project can do things quickly with these tools. And here at this level, we are not just limited to automation of tests. Why I'm saying that is because now we are at a level 4, which is considered as a pretty matured test automation framework. Here the expectation generally I have seen is how well you can save a time for a team. And not just testing is anyway bread and butter for you, but how and what kind of different capabilities you can bring on table, what kind of tools you can design, what kind of lift and shift mechanism you can do, what kind of a new innovation you can bring for our frameworks. Those kind of discussions you will predominantly find in this. The complete stakeholders are well matured to understand the value add of automation, the roadmap of automation. You do quarterly checks on automation roadmap, where we stand, what kind of a new test infrastructure or technology or education we want to bring into our automation projects. So a lot of those kind of a zero bug mindset, you will see people are coming up with. At this stage, you will also see the automation engineers or the complete team is investing in infrastructure handling as well to some extent. It's not just writing script and writing design patterns or libraries, or just understanding where my test libraries are, but contributing in the infrastructure side of it as well. So in my previous podcast, I have discussed about how much of DevOps is really needed for automation engineers. Uh, but in this level of maturity, you will expect some kind of infrastructure as a code knowledge, like Ansible scripts and so on. So you may or may not see a very complex orchestrator tools here, but you will still be using it. Most of the time here, like I said, thousands of scripts will be running your pipeline, so you will have bunch of automation running here and there containerized way. So that's the reason you will need an orchestrator, mostly Kubernetes or any other such tools you will be using it. And then you will also be evaluating the cost which you are incurring by using such infrastructure. So now the automation has matured. You have a big automation running, and which is running very frequently. Sometimes developers may run your test suites like 15 times on his code throughout the day just to check his code. And you are consuming those many compute instances. You are consuming those many S3 storage buckets, or you are consuming those many caching services. So you will incur a lot of cost, and management will ask you about how can we optimize. So that's this level is expecting from you. What cost optimization techniques you can bring, what tweaks you can put into your design so that you can save cost. Multi execution, parallel execution, how can you do browserless execution, how can you include more and more API test and reduce your UI test, and those kind of discussions. So at this level, you will also see end-to-end business processes being automated, like a procure to pay, hire to retire system, which are using a lot of microservices. You will automate a bunch of business processes by doing a handshake of those tests. uh, Less UI burden, I would say, at this stage. More of a API handshake test to accommodate your end-to-end automation. At this stage, the main focus is on continuous testing. You would have heard about shift left and shift right kind of a mindset, where we test at every level. Release, deploy, operate, sometimes building, merge, branching, even planning. So at this stage, you will see the test automation pipelines or automation is ready for all the stakeholders to optimize and leverage and to use at all the levels. Coming back to technicality, languages, multiple languages, predominantly the one or two language in which you're uh, SDETs or QA automation folks would write your scripts. But apart from that, you will deal with a lot of other languages, because at this level you will have different platforms which supports UI test, which supports API test, database test, third party handshakes, device forms. In that device forms there are different operating systems, different OS levels, different versioning of it. So that's the reason it will be a complex farm, a complex umbrella of different frameworks, different languages. So this level expects you to understand how to code, or how to debug things in a different way, which will involve different languages, of course. Mode of execution predominantly containerized, because like I said, here it's a well matured infrastructure, well matured automation level. You will predominantly run your test in containerized environment, in much more distributed way. The test may not be in one single place, because there is bunch of tests, and different stakeholders are running it continuously. You will need a much more distributed infrastructure to support this kind of a scale of automation. So that's why your mode of execution will be mostly remote. I have seen predominantly and AWS or similar kind of a cloud services being used for this kind of a automation. And there you will use a different compute services, storage services, caching services. Maybe you will use Kubernetes services, you will use a different kind of balancing services, or whatever, the notification services, or the trend analysis services. You will see tools like, uh, a Splunk, you will see a Sauce Labs, Browser Stack, Lambda tests, those kind of a platforms being leveraged at this kind of a maturity. At this level, you will also see much overhead on architects, or person who is leading automation team, to talk about automation metrics. How well matured your processes, automation processes are. What is your design pattern? How are you doing a refactor in your design patterns? What kind of a automatic bug logging and self-healing mechanisms are you bringing in place? Do you have a browserless execution, and if yes, then how are you communicating with a different type of third parties, and so on? So predominantly I'm talking about automation health index, which basically a parameter which people like me in my role, we calculate how how much is your automation index as of today, and how it's gonna be tomorrow. Are you degrading, or you're advancing in your automation health index? And to calculate your automation health index, there are several parameters. Like I said, the way you are executing your script, how flaky the tests are, what's the trend looks like for your given feature, how are you optimizing and refactoring your code, how much the script is taking on a compute instance to run, are you leveraging parallel execution, are you trying to save a time? So there are a bunch of different parameters on which we can calculate automation health index. And at this level, that's what the expectation from a framework looks like. The last the last and the most matured level is level 5, which is autonomous or matured, or I even call it as encompassing level. This level have seen very minimal projects, but I have seen some of them, of course. But fourth, the one I have talked about just now, these two levels are pretty much similar in a lot of things, like mode of execution, and so on. But there are some more things and much more advanced uh, processes will be you will see in this matured level 5, which is the last level which I'll talk about. So what is this? Like the previous level, in this level also the mindset would be a proactive and not a reactive way of automation, which means you are working with all the stakeholders and everyone is contributing in test automation. Here, the automation is not just responsibility of a one person who is writing a script, but we all are working towards the quality of a product we are shipping. So everyone, right from developer, a product manager, your QA manager, development manager, your customer representative, everyone is trying to give you inputs, and everyone is in the loop for that quality deliverables of automation. So it's a well collaborative and multi-stakeholder kind of a maturity model. We write well defined acceptance criteria at this level for automation. What is accepted, what is not accepted. uh, we understand the customer usage, customer journey models, and we write your test accordingly, and not just the way the QA people test, or not just to find bugs, but we go much more advanced strategies that how this feature is being used by the end stakeholders. If he's using along with other third party tools, with other kind of a IoT devices, or any other interface is being introduced in your product, then this type of automation brings all that together to test, and not just one granular unit test kind of things. Design patterns are strictly implemented at this level. I was talking about structural design pattern, creational, behavioral. So you guys would have heard about page object model. A lot of people who learn automation initially, they only learn about one of the design pattern, which is a page object model, which is one among these three main pillars which I'm talking about: structural, creational, and behavioral. There are much more. Singleton pattern is there. There are a lot of different patterns, and you need to understand carefully what your project needs are, what your product is, how it's being used by your customer, and based on that you need to design your design patterns which should be implemented in a project. And at this level it is expected to implement a right design pattern and be flexible if you need to refactor. There are a lot of tools which are implemented at this level to measure your test improvement. Either you, like I'm talking about test index, right? Are you improving in your test automation health index, or you are degrading in your automation health index? So those all calculations would be done by implementing certain tools at this level. So what is AHI? I was talking a lot, automation health index. It's a one of the way to understand where your automation health is for your project, in which I'll give a small example. If you, as a test automation engineer, you raise a code review, you raise a PR, and you request a couple of folks to review it. If you are working on a well matured framework, or you are working on a well matured test model, uh, you will probably be expected at least one or two reviewers to approve your code before you merge it, right? You will, otherwise you will not be allowed to just merge your PR without a code review. uh, if you are allowed, then you are probably in a one or two stage. So let's assume that you are working on level 3 or level 4, and then you are expected your PR should be reviewed by couple of folks. It could be developer, or it could be any other person from your team, but that PR is not being reviewed for a long duration, right? That is one of the parameter to understand your AHI. It's code review time, the code review cycle time. What's the total cycle time of the day you opened your review, and the day you merge your PR? What kind of a plug and play system do you have in your framework? You can relate plug and plays are like public methods, or libraries which can be easily consumed by other stakeholders within your team. Kind of reusable code. Are you following, or you're not following a particular design pattern? You are just writing whatever comes in your mind. You search on Google, you see some logic which is perfectly working, and you just copy paste and implement it, right? Are you doing that, or you are having a particular design understanding and guidelines in place for writing a most optimized and most thread safe and thread optimized kind of a code? Are you following that? uh, are you facing any exceptions within your code, which means bugs in your automation, not bug without of the product? How many of those are happening? What's your script trend execution looks like? And there are a lot of such things to calculate. If I am calculating all these parameters for your test automation over a period of 1 month, I will publish an index. Let's say I grade you out of 10, 5 or 6, and then that calculation methodology will be uh, telling the management what and where do you stand compared to other peers in your product for test automation. So that kind of a maturity this level expects, that kind of a project I have seen. uh, some teams even have infrastructure as a code handling mechanisms. They build a tool for themselves to create their containers, to spin up their machines, to make sure they tear down in a right way, or they have a complete orchestrator in a place. They just not use the containers. They have a complete orchestration in a mechanism in place. So if you guys not understand what is orchestration means, so test orchestration in a way is a set of automated tasks which are scheduled in a certain order. Or to just to give a simple example, if you have heard about any or you have seen any music concert, you will see one orchestrator who's standing in front of all the musicians, or you're just handling or giving some instructions. Not instruction, he's like just uh, doing certain kind of hand actions. We'll call it as the person is orchestrating that entire music, right? That kind of a thing in a scaled automation where you are expected to run thousands and thousands of scripts on different platforms parallelly in a threat safe way, in a secure way. You need a good tools to do that. Orchestrator is one of the way to handle your containers, and when they can, if they something is killed, it will spin up automatically and it will start running it in a new container and so on. And it also communicates within containers. So that kind of a maturity expected in this level. In this level, it's not just about tools and technologies, but it's all about processes as well, mindset. uh, the teams at this level do a bunch of knowledge sharing. They reserve a time every month for educating each other about automation, what new we can bring in place. They don't fear about doing experiments. They have a reserved time and bandwidth and scoping and publishing mechanism to management. What experiments have they done, whether it was successful, whether it was failure, and out of that experiment sometimes they bring a bunch of innovative things on table. So that's a level of this maturity model is talking about. They do a lot of trial and error, but of course keep it limited. They have a bandwidth for that. It's not just testing but holistic approach to quality at this level. They do test automation retrospection. They understand how our scripts are running, what are the results, what are the action item, what are the optimization we can do on this kind of a tests. uh, Team reserve a time for reading books, for attending seminars, for listening podcast, to go to a seminars or conferences where they can bring new practices, new education to their team. And then they do a reverse knowledge transfer, what they have learned after attending that conference. Today you are listening to me. You can say, hey, I have listened to Saurabh and he shared something about automation maturity model, and this is what I have learned, would like to hear. And you reserve a 15 minutes talk and try to educate your team. That level of maturity at this level is talking about. you know so that this level of maturity will help the overall test automation infrastructure processes to take business decisions on its own. It's a self-healing kind of a mechanism. The scripts, if it fails, you'll have a mechanism to automatically sometimes identify and try to implement a fix as well. uh, like a zero touch automation. uh, I know it may sound like a lot, but I have seen certain projects which are trying to do something similar, and they are pretty doing okay in that level. Some teams uh, call about automation roadmaps. So when you understand where do you stand as of today in terms of your automation maturity, generally you create automation roadmap to go to a next level. So you identify all the tech debt, whatever you are lagging or whatever you are doing good, and based on that you create your tech debt. You no need to work on it right away, but you create that inventory of tech debt with you, so that you know what all things you probably may need to go to that next level. And by doing a brainstorming session with your managers, understanding your scope, the investment management can commit, and the kind of a timelines you lay down, you create a well structured automation roadmap for your team. You revisit that roadmap every quarter. And like I said, how to improve your maturity, you always talk about it with your team. You use a different orchestrator, you use a different uh, tools, you use the right processes, right mindset. And and always start with small. Don't go with a big bang implementation of anything, that hey, I heard about Kubernetes, it's very good, let's implement it. You may not even have those many scripts which will need a complex orchestrator, right? You have only 10 scripts. Let's say you are in level 1, you have just 10 scripts. Why do you even need Kubernetes at this stage? uh, you may say that, hey, I just want to start with the best things out there. That's okay, but always start small. Do repeated tests and try to address a low hanging fruit first and then mature over a period of time. That's why the automation roadmap is very important. And then automate more and more and more tests so that you are giving and shipping a quality products. So with this, I would like to end my talk. I know I was continuously talking for last 40 minutes. I think I lost a track of time, but this is the topic I'm very interested, and I can always share more. If you are someone who would like to learn more or try to explore more, or want to share something about your own experience which I haven't covered in this talk, please feel free to ping me. You can connect me over LinkedIn. You can talk to me on YouTube, on my website. And yeah, one small request: if you feel any of this is being useful to you, even 10 to 20%, consider writing some review for me on LinkedIn, or just drop me an email. So thanks once again for joining me on this podcast. I'll have my last podcast in this series, podcast episode number 5, and I promise you I'll bring a very exclusive and very interesting topic in my next episode. So see you guys. Bye.